Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys saw from the title of today's video, and as you guys can see from the stack of books right next to me, today I will be sharing all the books that I read in the month of April. Somehow May is only a few days away, so it's already time to give you guys my book recap. I feel like I didn't read this month as much as I read last month, but I still feel like I read some really good books this time around. So I'm really excited to share all the books that I read with you guys, and without further ado, we are just going to jump right in. I have a bunch of notes on my laptop in case you guys are wondering why I keep looking down. You know, when you read a lot of books, they kind of start to blend together after a while. So in order to prevent that from happening, as soon as I finished a book, I wrote down my thoughts and my review on them because I didn't want to forget anything important. I don't even know where I should start, honestly. Let's start with The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This book, you guys, I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was such a cute romantic comedy. The majority of this book was set in Hawaii. By the time I finished this book, I was so tempted to book a trip to Hawaii. It just sounded like paradise. It's definitely on my bucket list of places to visit. And basically it's about a twin sister, Olive, who has a bad luck, like no tomorrow. Everything bad that can possibly happen happens to her, versus her twin sister is a complete opposite, except that on her wedding day, her twin sister gets food poisoning. So she and her husband can't go to their honeymoon together. Therefore, she begs Olive to go on her honeymoon for her. And the groom does the same thing with his brother, Ethan. For some reason, Olive hates Ethan. Ethan hates Olive. Now they're stuck going on this honeymoon together. Sparks fly, one thing leads to another, and real emotions start to surface between Olive and Ethan. Honestly, I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was the right amount of funny and romantic with some really deep moments in the book. I love the writing, the format. I really enjoy Olive's character. She started out as hating the world, thinking that only bad things happened to her and she wasn't worthy of anything good happening. And basically towards the end of the book, she realizes that she's also capable of having good things happen to her. So I really liked reading her growth. It was such a quick read. I finished it literally in one sitting. So I highly recommend this book because I absolutely fell in love with it, and I cannot wait to read more books from this author. The next book that I read was Beautiful Disaster by Jamie Maguire. I really enjoyed this book. This is another romance book. This book follows two characters, Abby, who is a college student who is trying to leave her past in the past. She has had a lot of shitty things happen to her and she's looking for a fresh start. She just wants to focus on her studies and focus on bettering her life, graduating, things like that. And then we have Travis, who is a bad boy. He's a player. He has slept with basically the entire college campus. They're literally polar opposites. He's exactly the type of person that she's trying to stay away from, but they keep being pulled together. Honestly, they are both hella toxic for each other. They do experience a lot of growth in this book, especially towards the end. I really enjoyed reading their story, seeing them grow, seeing them, you know, come together, then apart, then together again. I definitely recommend this book. It does deal with addiction. Keep that in mind if that might be a trigger for you. I believe there are 2 more books in this series. The second book in the series is basically the same book as this one, but it's completely from Travis's point of view. And even though it's the same story, I'm really excited to read it because I love getting the male point of view. I don't know why, I just enjoy it way more than I enjoy female's point of view. But overall, I really enjoyed this book and I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Another book that I absolutely loved reading this month is One of Us Is Lying by Karen McManus. Hey guys, I'm interrupting this video because I am editing and I realized that I never actually told you what this book is about. It's basically about 5 students that are in detention. One of them ends up dead before the detention is even over, and then the other 4 are actually being framed by the real killer. Since they're being framed, they now have to work together as a group to find out who the real killer is and to find out the truth about what happened. And yeah, that's a quick summary of the book. I was actually pretty skeptical in starting this book because I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and I really don't understand the hype behind that book. And since this is another kind of like murder mystery, I didn't know if it was also going to be overhyped, but this book definitely lives up to the hype expectations. I did not want to put this book down, you guys. Absolutely absolutely loved it. The ending took me by complete surprise. There are 4 main characters, well 5 if you count the victim, but you get all 4 characters' point of view, and I really enjoyed that. And I fell in love with all the characters, but mainly Bronwyn and Nate. I absolutely love them together. I'm actually going to start watching the series that's on Peacock. I think it's on Netflix if you're not from the United States, but I'm really excited to watch the show. And next time that I'm at Barnes & Noble, I'm definitely going to pick up the second book in the series because I enjoyed every second that I read this book. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. If you haven't read this book and you really enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, definitely read this. I honestly think this book is way better than A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, in my humble opinion. Now for this book. If you watched my 24-hour reading vlog, then you know how I feel about this book. This is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I'll read the back cover of the book since it's pretty short and sweet and you get the gist. So it goes, Connell and Marianne grew up in the same small town, but the similarities end there. At school, Connell is popular and well-liked, while Marianne is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. Normal People is the story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from that first conversation to the years beyond in the company of 2 people who try to stay apart but find that they can't. I know that a lot of people connected with this book. I just was not one of them. If I could give it 0 stars, I honestly would. Absolutely hated the 2 main characters. Did not connect with them at all. Specifically Connell, I thought he was such an ass. I don't get angry with books at all. But I found myself physically angry while reading this book. Like, I literally wanted to get inside the book and shake the 2 main characters. The miscommunication, the immaturity, I just could not get behind. And I think it's because in real life, I value communication. I value someone to be upfront with me, tell me their feelings. I don't want to do this guessing game. I'm not here for that. And I felt like these 2 main characters would have avoided a lot of their problems had they just communicated. Had they just been upfront about their feelings instead of playing games. At first, when I started reading this book, I thought I enjoyed the time jumps, but as I was reading more and more, I realized that I actually hated the time jumps. Once these 2 characters were actually on the same page for once, 6 months would pass and something would happen and they weren't talking anymore. I understand why the author wrote it that way though, because I guess she wanted to show their relationship throughout the years. I honestly did not enjoy this book, but that doesn't mean that you may not enjoy it. Again, this book has a lot of praise. A lot of people love this book. You may be one that loves it, or you may read it and find out that you absolutely hate it like me. But you know what? You won't find out until you read it. So if you've been interested in reading it, go for it, read it, form your own opinions, and then come back to this video and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The next book that I read was Look What You Made Me Do by Elaine Murphy. I'm also going to read the back cover on this book because I think it summarizes the book pretty nicely and is short and sweet, but it goes, Carrie Lawrence doesn't need a happily ever after. She'll just settle for after. After a decade of helping her sister hide her victims, after a lifetime of lies, she just wants to be safe, boring, and not tracking through the woods at night with a dead body wrapped in a carpet. Becca Lawrence doesn't believe in happily ever after because she's already happy. She's gotten away with murder for a decade and has blackmailed her sister into helping her hide the evidence. What more could a girl want? When 13 bodies are discovered in their small town, people are shocked, but not as shocked as Carrie, who thought she knew all the details of Becca's sordid pastime. When Becca swears she's not behind the greasily new crimes, they realize the town has a second serial killer who has the sisters in his sights, and what he wants is Carrie. I was so excited to read this book, but it honestly just fell flat for me. When I read the back cover, I thought that I was going to get the point of view of both sisters, the one that's innocent, well, kind of innocent because not really, and the sister who happens to be a serial killer. I only got one character's point of view, and it was Carrie's. I was annoyed with Carrie throughout this book because she kept referring to herself as a victim, and I'm like, girl, you could have given your sister up to the police, but you chose to not do that. So you're an accomplice. You're just as bad as your sister. I will not help anyone hide a dead body. I don't care if you're my mother, my father, my sister, my husband. I'm not helping. Like, it is not worth jail time. And then you have the third character, who is this mysterious serial killer who is targeting Carrie. And I did really like the twist at the end. I had no no idea who the serial killer was. Well, actually, I did have an idea and I was completely wrong, which made me so happy because I would have hated this book even more if I was able to guess who the serial killer was. But honestly, when you finally find out who the serial killer was, their interaction with Carrie is like 3 seconds, and it feels like the author just ran past that part of the book. I feel like throughout the book, the author really grew the anticipation of the serial killer finally meeting Carrie and vice versa, that when it finally happened, it felt blah, and it felt like it was 5 seconds long, honestly. And I was left like, that's it? That's who the serial killer is, and that's all he did? I didn't find it exciting at all. I found myself quite bored throughout the book, if I'm being honest. This book took me like 2 weeks to finish it because I kept putting it down and walking away from it. There was so much potential with the plot, and the author really didn't take advantage of that potential. I feel like she went the easy, boring route, if I'm being honest. So definitely not a fave of mine. I give this book like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason I don't give it a 2 out of 5 is because, again, I was wrong about who the serial killer was. So for that reason, I give it half a star. I think that if I was able to hear the second sister's point of view, this book definitely would have been a lot more interesting. Also, one thing to note, there are only 12 chapters in this book, but the book has over 350 pages. So it was really interesting to be stuck in a chapter for a very long time when nothing actually ever happened. This is definitely a very slow-paced book. Speaking of slow books, I finally read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. When 19-year-old Feyre kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal, immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the fairy Tamlin transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairylands. An ancient, wicked shadow is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. This book definitely gives me Beauty and the Beast vibes. Not like exactly the same as Beauty and the Beast, but the similarities and the vibes are definitely there. This was my first fantasy book and I'm obsessed. I cannot wait to read the second book in the series. I enjoyed absolutely every page that I read in this book. I have a more in-depth review featured in my reading vlog of this book, so I'm going to try to keep this review short and sweet in case you already watched that video. I had some issues with both main characters, Feyre and Tamlin, but honestly, I love them together. I love their dynamic. I love how much growth Feyre had, especially towards the end of the book. Like I mentioned in my reading vlog, a lot of the action happens towards the end. The first like 200 pages is a lot of world building, a lot of character building. Nothing really important happens in the first half of this book. I still really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was going to like this book at all. I thought I was going to absolutely hate it, and the complete opposite happened. And since I'm new to the fantasy world, the fantasy genre, I really enjoyed that this book was slow and I got to really understand the world, the creatures, the relationships with the humans, the characters, and all of that good stuff. So I honestly give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And again, I'm definitely going to start reading the second book in May, maybe the third if I enjoy the second one. Definitely recommend to start this series. Don't get discouraged by how slow this book is, because honestly, I've heard people say that the second book is better and that the third book is even better than the first two. So if you can survive through this book and make it to the second and third, I think you'll really appreciate it. Final 5 books that I read in April are all from Colleen Hoover. I love Colleen Hoover. She's basically my favorite author at the moment. I enjoy reading her books so much. Some more than others, if I'm being honest, and I'll get more into that in a second. But I'm going to start with the series that I read from her, which is the Slam series. The first book in the series is Slammed. In this book, we basically get introduced to the two main characters, Will and Link. Will lost his parents, I think, when he was 18, 19, and Lake has just lost her father. So their grief kind of brings them together in a way, but then they discover something that forces them to stay apart from each other for the majority of the book. I really enjoyed the writing of this book in the format. There's actual real poetry in the book, and I really enjoyed reading it. I absolutely fell in love with the two main characters. I absolutely love Will. I love that this book tackles real life issues. It deals with death. It deals with the aftermath of death. Not only grief, but also like who has to take care of the bills. If there are little ones involved, who takes care of the little ones? Like important shit that no one ever talks about until it's too late. This book covers it, and I absolutely love that. I think there are a lot of important life lessons in this book that people can take away and apply it to their real lives. Honestly, a 5-star read for me. I think this is Colleen Hoover's first book, if I'm not mistaken, and she killed it. She did such a good job. If you haven't read Slammed, what are you doing? Go read it because you'll love it. I feel like It Ends With Us gets all of the hype, which that was a good book, don't get me wrong, but Colleen Hoover has so many other good ones that don't get the recognition they deserve, and Slammed is definitely one of those books. The second book, Point of Retreat, follows the same two main characters, Will and Lake. They're basically dealing with their new reality, which I don't want to tell you guys what the reality is because then I'll spoil the book. Basically, they are trying to move forward with their relationship, but Will's past comes knocking, and he makes some questionable choices that leaves their relationship strained. And throughout the book, Will is basically having to prove his love to Lake. I really enjoyed reading this book. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I still give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Like the first book, there's a little bit of poetry sprinkled throughout the book. I also think there are a lot of important life lessons in this book as well. Highly recommend to pick this one up as well. Definitely read Slam before you read Point of Retreat, because I feel like if you read it in the correct order, you'll get to appreciate the two main characters a lot more and really understand their story. I just started reading the third book in the series, This Girl. I'm on page 72. I'm really enjoying this book. This book is basically Will's perspective on the first couple months of his and Lake's relationship. I don't think this really adds anything to the series, if I'm being honest. At least so far, it hasn't really added anything. You do learn a couple new things, which is fun. Again, I'm only 72 pages in, so that may change. I may discover some things that, you know, add to the series. But as of now, it's just a rehash of their first couple months together, which we already kind of know from the first and second book. I feel like I'm rambling because I'm tired. I've still been enjoying it because I genuinely love Will and Lake's relationship. So even though it doesn't really add anything, I still think it's a good read. The next book that I read from Colleen Hoover was Confess. This one I also read during my 24-hour reading vlog, so you may already know my thoughts on this. But this book, you guys, is heavy. I was crying, literal tears within the first couple pages. I did not expect this book to be so heavy. I did not expect it to affect me the way it did. And even though it was heavy at the beginning, as the book progressed, I felt like I really couldn't connect with the two main characters, Auburn and Owen. Let me quickly read you the back cover. Auburn Reed has lost everything important to her. In her fight to rebuild her shattered life, she has her goals in sight and there is no room for mistakes. But when she walks into a Dallas art studio in search of a job, she doesn't expect to find a deep attraction to the artist who works there, Owen. For once, Auburn takes a chance and puts her heart in control, only to discover that Owen is keeping a major secret from coming out. The magnitude of his past threatens to destroy everything Auburn loves most, and the only way to get her life back on track is to cut Owen out of it. To save their relationship, all Owen needs to do is confess, but in this case, the confession could be much more destructive than the actual sin. I enjoyed the plot of this book. I really enjoyed reading the two main characters like growth throughout the book. The ending for me definitely made the book. The ending tugged at my heartstrings. Absolutely loved the ending, but again, I just felt like I struggled reading this book a little bit. It wasn't horrible and it wasn't great. It was just meh, you know, like I wasn't blown away with this book. I honestly give this like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not my fave Colleen Hoover book, but I still think it's a solid read. If you enjoy Colleen Hoover's writing style and you just love her books, definitely pick this one up and read it for yourself. You may end up loving it or you may hate it. I don't know. The next book that I read is November 9th. Fallon meets Ben, an aspiring novelist, the day before her scheduled cross-country move. Their untimely attraction leads them to spend Fallon's last day in LA together, and her eventful life becomes the creative inspiration Ben has always sought for his novel. Over time, and amidst the various relationships and tribulations of their own separate lives, they continue to meet on the same date every year, until one day Fallon becomes unsure if Ben has been telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. Can Ben's relationship with Fallon be considered a love story if it ends in heartbreak? Honestly, I'm still going back and forth with the rating for this book. Can't decide whether or not to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars or a 4 out of 5 stars. My main problem with this book is that I found it a bit too unrealistic. So you're telling me that two people meet who are insanely attracted to one another, eventually fall in love with one another, only meet once a year, and then the rest of the year they don't text, they don't talk on the phone, they don't follow each other on social media, they have zero contact except on that one day of the year that they spend less than 24 hours together. I found myself struggling with this book for that reason. I really enjoyed their relationship. I thought that they were really good for one another. I will say that I did not see the twist coming in this book at all. Colleen Hoover is so good with twists. Whenever you think you can guess what's gonna happen, she like throws you in for a loop, and I really enjoy her books for that reason. So I didn't see the twist coming. I really enjoyed the ending. I just felt like the plot was a little bit too unrealistic. Like, I understand it's a romantic novel, it's not based on any actual truth or facts, but at least make it a little bit relatable or a little bit more realistic. That's my only complaint with this book. I still really enjoyed it. I still think it's a good read. It's definitely one of her more popular books. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that one. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in today's video. I would love to know your thoughts and opinions. Also, if you have any recommendations of books that I should read for the month of May, leave them in the comments below as well. I think I'm going to Barnes & Noble this weekend, and I definitely want to pick up some new reads. That's pretty much it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.